To be able to introduce this one moment, it's just almost incomprehensible that they can exist right now. So,
and we are grateful.
So close.
Trigger warning. This podcast is intended for men. Not boys, not babies, men.
This is how we disable toxic masculinity.
We need to kill all men.
This pagan patriarchalism that is coming back out of the shadows.
Feminists hate patriarchy.
It's the woman that runs the show and the woman that runs the community and is the backbone of that area.
I'm a nasty woman. A loud, vulgar, proud woman.
Patriarchy. Male privilege. Are you saying you have authority over me? Go get your superior.
I personally can't see why egalitarianism would be a bad thing.
The assumption that wives should make babies instead of money is part of the patriarchy.
Don't say hi to strange women you don't know.
Patriarchy. The patriarchy.
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 For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. Upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. And that is Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 to 7. You are on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network, and you are listening to The Patriarchy. My name is Tony DePani, and I am joined by my co-host, Pastor Joseph Randall Spurgeon.
Woman, get back in here and make me a sandwich.
Joseph, what kind of sandwich are you eating today?
Well, I'm kind of eating the leftovers here of this turkey sandwich. I mean, this was a really great sandwich. It was on French bread, turkey, a little bit of cranberry sauce on it, and some dressing, getting ready for the Christmas holiday. I mean, it was really, really, really good, except for I kind of got kicked out of the place where I was trying to eat it.
What'd you do?
No, I was just in the dining room, and I was watching some guys play chess.
In the dining room?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I don't know why. A couple of my buddies decided to set up in this dining room and play chess. And the manager came over and told us that the office people asked us to move away. And so we asked why. And he said it's because they can't stand chestnuts boasting in an open foyer.
Oh, man. You know, I kind of thought you were joking there when you told me that it was your friends, because, you know, I didn't believe that part, but nice.
So that was the joke.
That was the joke.
That was the joke. That was
nice. Well, okay. You know
Joke's
what?
on you.
Yeah, but you know what I had? You know what I had this week? What did I have?
A Corona sandwich.
No,
you had?
No.
You had. I know it.
It came back.
A muffin.
Yes, I had a cheeseburger muffin. For people that are new-time listeners, this goes a ways back, but it's actually a real thing. My wife makes cheeseburger muffins. I know that sounds kind of weird. It's not actually really a muffin. It's basically like a, what are those called? Not a croissant, but like those flaky roll biscuit things or whatever that you make. And she basically uses that batter and makes it into look like a muffin. And there's hamburger meat inside, and I actually don't know. I got to ask her. I actually don't know what sauce is inside. It's almost like it's a. Actually, I don't even know if it really should be called a cheeseburger muffin. I think it should be called like a sloppy Joe muffin, because that's more like what's inside. And then on top, there's like melted cheese and stuff and whatever. But it is actually in a muffin tin. She makes it, and it looks like a muffin, but it's not like muffin batter. It's like more like roll or whatever batter. But anyway,
you're spending a lot of time to describe this.
Because it's good, man. I mean, it's good. I know it's a running joke on this show, but it's good. I mean, my kids love it. I love it. It sounds weird, but it is really, really good. I know it's not a sandwich, but still, I had to say it because I literally just ate it tonight for dinner. And I know you always make the joke and ask, but it made its comeback, and I'm glad, and I like it, and I don't care what you say. So there.
Okay.
Well, since this is our Christmas episode, you found a wonderful little gem, a wonderful little nugget of Christmas joy for our reoccurring, longtime everybody's favorite segment.
Feminism ruins everything.
So here we go, folks. Brace yourself.
Oh, sexism, life forms are so wide-ranging. Oh, sexism, from catcalls to slut-shaming. A lot of it's insidious, but nonetheless still takes the piss. Oh, sexism, please spare me your mansplaining.
Oh, goodness.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry
in jail.
Yes. Oh.
Can we put them in jail?
Merry 2020 Christmas. Oh,
yes.
Man.
So.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, man. That is.
That's special.
That almost ruins everything. Feminism ruins everything. But I'm not letting them ruin my Christmas.
Yeah, that's special. And not in a good way.
You know who else tries to ruin my Christmas?
No.
All the conspiracy theory Christians that say, did you know that it's pagan to celebrate Christmas?
Oh, I see where you're going. Yes, I know. I just ignore them now.
Yeah. It's because it's a myth. It's a stupid myth.
I know.
Actually, there's a professor named William Teig, and he actually puts it very clearly, pretty helpfully, that there actually wasn't any kind of pagan feast on December 25th until after Christians had already been celebrating a holiday or some kind of celebration beforehand. And so Christians came first, pagans tried to steal it, and then we have Grinches today who want to celebrate paganism and think that that's what is behind every Christian tradition and everything that happens in the church.
Well, you know who's a good person to go to for this? We're going to go to, on the phone, we have Jeff Durbin. Oh, wait. Jeff never got back to us. Jeff, if you're listening, or if anybody from Apologia is listening, you said you were going to come on. We cornered you at the Fight Laugh Feast conference upstairs, right outside. I know you're a busy guy, man, but come on next year, okay? Please. We really, really, really want you to do a Christmas episode. Please. Sorry, I had to put that in because I want people to tag Apologia in this because I want to get him on the show.
Yeah, I hear you. No, actually, but the explanation of how we came up with December 25th, people are always also saying, that's not Jesus's birthday. And do you know how we came up to December 25th?
We grabbed a pagan holiday, a random pagan holiday, and we slapped Christmas on it, right?
No.
That's what I've heard.
No, actually, so here's what it is. There's this Jewish belief or tradition called the integral age. And what that is basically this idea that often something big happens repeatedly on the same day. And often in particular in the life of very important people. And so they'll often see that somebody was born and died or was conceived on the same day. So you have early Christians that have kind of come from within this Jewish tradition, and then you can read in the early church this big debate over Easter. when was Easter, trying to figure that exact out. Well, they also thought then, once they kind of nailed it down to around March 25th or somewhere in there, that was the day of his crucifixion. Easter was a few days later, but on the date of his death would also be the same day that he was conceived. So conceived on March 25th or thereabouts. You add 9 months to that, and where do you line up? December 25th. We actually see that if you go back in church history, you'll see that they celebrated that March 25th time as Christmas actually pretty early on because they were celebrating his conception. And then it ended up getting moved later on to a different date, to December 25th as they started to celebrate his birth more. But the idea that pagans have taken, we took this all from pagans, it's this conspiracy theory. And I think it's like this bad, bad vibe that a lot of modern American Christians have, where we mistrust and hate anything that arises from church history. And so we're always suspecting that behind every good thing that we have is some kind of evil, nefarious plot. And I think Christians should be done with that.
I do too. I think there's enough evil and bad in the world that we don't have to go looking under every rock to go find it.
Yeah, and we've spent a lot of time. We've done a lot of episodes we've done an episode on holidays, and we gave a good defense of that. And I don't need to do that here, but I do think that Christians just need to be willing to embrace traditions from the church history, not in a salvific way, not tradition with a capital T. Roman Catholicism has tradition with a capital T, in which they have two different types of revelation from God. Mm-hmm. So they believe, actually three types. So along with Orthodox Protestants, we believe that God has given us natural revelation in creation. We also agree that he's given us special revelation. It's where the Roman Catholics then say special revelation includes scripture and then this capital T tradition, this idea of word of mouth teaching that came from the apostles that's a different source of revelation than scripture. And therefore you can draw doctrines such as the doctrine of Mary from this capital T tradition without ever there needing to be anything in the Bible about it. But lowercase t tradition, which is basically the idea as the church sits under scripture and it learns to interpret scripture and it applies it, it's developing things that happen over time. And some of them good, some of them bad. If they ever get away from scripture, we feel free to disregard them. But we don't have to completely disregard them. And in fact, tradition is, what would you say? You can't ever get away from it. It always is going to happen. If we started with a complete clean slate right now in our churches with nothing, just trying to figure out, we're going to start with just the Bible and pay no attention to anything that's ever come before us, within a couple of weeks, we would already have developed tradition.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what the Restoration Church's movement did in the 1800s. The Churches of Christ and all those, they thought they were going back and bypassing all the church history, and all they end up doing is creating their own traditions, apart from the actual history of the church and God's work through the church. And so I don't think we have to disregard traditions. In fact, I think we should probably establish some of our own, especially in our homes. Mm-hmm. And so Agreed. I would suggest maybe after our interview here, which we're going to be discussing with Marcus Pittman, as we joked about Jeff Durbin. So we'll get another Apologia kind of guy to come on.
He's not there anymore. He left. He moved, remember?
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So
probably because Jeff would not come on here to do Christmas show.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, although we did have Luke. We did have Luke on, so that was last main episode. So we got one of them. We gotta. It's like our collection. It's like Pokemon. You got to catch them all, or whatever the heck the thing is. I don't know. I was never into that. So, Apologiamon or something. Got to catch them all. Okay.
Yeah, let's come back after we talk with him, and let's just talk about some of our Christmas traditions of our own that we establish in our home.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be on the line with Marcus Pittman. You might recognize his name if you listen to our network from Law and Prophets. Also, Babies Are Murdered Here, and Babies Are Still Murdered Here, and now we're going to talk about Lore, which is his new project. So stick around. You're on the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network, and you are listening to The Patriarchy. We'll be right back.
Welcome to How to Build a Dumpster Fire, a show about building social capital, only on the Lean Left Punch Right network. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to go over the top 10 ways to build a better progressive utopia. Number 1, when condemning unrighteous acts, speak in strict generalities because truth isn't specific, ever. And neither is that, for the record. Or is it? If the government says jump, don't just say how high. Offer every liberty and right that God has afforded you to them, as well as those of your neighbors, because nothing says Romans 13 like subjecting your neighbors to outright tyranny. Number 3, move church to YouTube forever, because as we've already covered, truths like don't forsake the gathering of the saints are more like guidelines than a rule. Number 4, shut down the world for a virus that survival rate is better than driving your car to work. Then, when you've destroyed everyone's livelihood, give them $600 and pat on the butt. Attaboy. Number 5, when a worldly ideology doesn't work, just read it into the text, because hath God really said? Number 6, when you're so bad at what you do and can't make a living, just take a PPP loan. Number 7, when you tweet something that doesn't go over well, just delete it and act like it never happened. Then tweet something that everyone agrees with. Number 8, if you're scared of what God is calling you to do, don't worry, Beth Moore will do it for you. But always in front of the pulpit, not behind. Number 9, if you want to get paid for doing absolutely nothing helpful whatsoever, the ERLC is always hiring. Number 10, you've been waiting to shoehorn ethnic hatred into your church, but just haven't quite got the eisegesis right? Wait for someone to die, stir in a little Black Lives Matter, and you'll find it goes down smoother than a good scotch, because after all, we both know your church was apostate long before this. That's our list for today, folks. I hope you find this as helpful as the next round of stimulus checks will be to the unemployed. Until next time, we're all in this together.
Well, hello there. This is Chadwick from Things You Don't Want But Now Need. I am here to tell you about our brand new product, introducing the Emperor's Mask. You see, it's a revolutionary, completely breathable, touchless mask that is fully liberal compliant. How is this possible, you ask? Well, that's a phenomenal question, and shows me that you're probably not a liberal. You see, much like the Emperor's clothes in that old children's fable, this mask doesn't actually exist. It's made of nothing, comes packaged in nothing, and exactly like real masks, does nothing. This breakthrough non-material is extraordinarily cheap to produce, almost like we're not making anything at all, the savings of which we pass directly on to you. What you'll get with your order is just an email that says you're wearing a mask. This is the receipt. Show this to the completely masked, gloved, and head-to-toe gowned person at the Walmart entrance, and you're good to go. If they protest, though, we will send an extra email at no charge that recognizes your preferred pronouns of mask and masked. Because if Bruce Jenner can be Woman of the Year and a virus can understand curfews, well then, you can certainly self-identify as wearing a diaper on your face. Act now, as supplies are extremely limited. Ha! We all know that's not true. But since the government is playing make-believe, well, we can too. Until the next rename flu season strikes, this is Chadwick signing off.
We're on the line with Marcus Pittman. Marcus is the Chief Creative Officer of LoreTV. He's a filmmaker, showrunner, and producer. He's also the host of Law and Prophets on the little-known network, Fight, Laugh, Feast Network, and is married to his wife, Laura, of almost 3 years. Marcus, welcome back to the Patriarchy.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
What did you say? I thought this was supposed to be Jeff Durbin.
Well, we couldn't get him, so we had to settle for the former.
Have to settle for me.
Yeah, the former media guy for yeah.
No,
so,
I'm just kidding. We're glad to have
Jeff
you back
told him
on.
to move, didn't he? Jeff told him he had to get out because he was on because Marcus, you were on the Patriarchy before. Jeff was like, we can't have that. You got to move. You got to get out of the church. You got to move out of the state. That's what happened, right?
It's not big enough for the two of us.
No, I don't think Jeff minds the Patriarchy that much.
Well, tell him to come on then. We invited him on for the Christmas episode. He said he would at the Fight, Laugh, Feast conference. I've said that already on this episode. Jeff, if you're listening, you better come on next year. Okay.
All right. Well, no, Marcus, it's good to have you. So here's a question. What the heck is lore?
Lore is a streaming service that we're building literally from scratch. We're building it from the ground up. And the plan is really just to build a true competitor to the streaming services that we see out there like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Hulu, those sort of things. So that's a sort of goal. It's not a Christian bubble, a Christian alternative, or even like a conservative bubble, like Parler or Gab or those sort of things. We think what we're building is a true streaming and film Goliath that we're making, and we think it's going to rival Netflix and the biggest out there, and it's certainly not going to be a place for films like PureFlix.
Well, so
like
you're gonna put out. So that means that you're definitely going to put out.
It's going to be like PureFlix?
No, he's not. He's not.
It's certainly not going to be like PureFlix.
What he's going to do is he's going to put out God's still not dead, or whatever the sequel is, right?
Oh yes, just no. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a way. Most of the films and TV shows that you watch are determined by pretty much like 8 people in Hollywood, right? So the head of Netflix, head of Disney, head of CBS and Universal, right? So they all decide, hey, this is the content we're going to make. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get those guys out of the way, and we're just going to create a platform that allows regular Joe Schmo and fathers and families to fund and make the content that they want to see without the producers making those decisions or the suits making those decisions for them.
Nice.
So will they be
taking out the middleman?
Nice.
So normal people be uploading? Is it kind of like a YouTube thing, or
no?
Okay.
There's going to be, at least initially, a selection process of like the sort of films and stuff that we put on the platform that get selected to be fundraised, and then from there people can determine what sort of movies and TV shows that they want to see. So we're sort of a much higher version of YouTube for sure, because YouTube, I mean, you can put whatever you want on YouTube. But what we're going to do is do more high-end content, like films, television series, sitcoms, animation, all that sort of stuff. So on a higher end scale. The difference is you have a lot of Christian filmmakers out there who are in the very top level of Hollywood. It's shocked me, just since we've done this, how many people I've spoken to at every level of the industry that are just super skilled, super talented, and they have to make content that's undercover. So sort of like some of the, like you'll see a show and you'll go, man, like that show had to be written by a Christian. And chances are it's true. It was. But it's not obviously Christian, because if it's too visible, those sort of lines in writing gets cut out or never picked up. So we have a lot of people within the Christian film industry. Within the secular film industry, we have a lot of Christians that are in there that are super skilled, super talented. The problem is they don't have a way to really make the content that they want, because the people at the top of the industry are outright pagan Marxists. So they're not going to allow a creator to truly be free and make what he wants, because essentially the creators are just employees of their worldview, essentially, at the very core. And so that's how we get, all these homosexuals and Netflix films, and just randomly pop up anywhere, the random drag queen, like they're just there.
You mean like the
and
entire
they don't make any sense to the plot?
Like the entire CW?
Yeah.
The entire CW.
Right, absolutely. And there's Christians that are having to make these decisions. It's like, okay, they're making me put a drag queen in my script.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how far do I go with this? And all these sort of, like, there's all sorts of questions that they're having to deal with. And a lot of people are saying, well, maybe, I'll start driving an Uber or something instead. And like, so for us at Lore, we're like, well, God didn't make you to drive an Uber. God made you to be a gifted storyteller and a gifted artist. And so there's a sort of moral responsibility on Lore to create a platform where talented Christian artists don't have to be, one, disguised, and two, like Uber drivers.
So when is the question is when is Ride Sally Ride coming out? Is that going to happen?
Man, I don't have the rights to that, man.
Come on, man, make it happen. I keep this like that would make such a great feature film.
Yeah, it'd be a great film. Yeah.
So I'm still trying to get my mind all the way around it. Is this like a subscription service, or is this kind of like GoFundMe meets a streaming service?
It's like a Kickstarter plus Netflix, essentially that. And then as we reach scale, we have some different options for our funding model that we're looking into. So it'll probably change over time. But initially, what you're going to see in the next few months are a bunch of projects that launch in sort of a Kickstarter style fashion. That's going to shock the world. So
nice, good.
So yeah.
So can you give us any? I know you can't give us any names, probably anybody you talk to, but has anybody told you any like stories of things as a Christian they went through in Hollywood?
Man, well, I mean, like, one of the guys that's with us was writing a production for a show that was being picked up by a top streaming service, and it's essentially the show is based on religion or whatever, and so the producers were like, do you really need it to be that religious? And he's like, well, yeah, kind of, absolutely, it has to be, because that's the premise of the entire show. And so there's a lot of all these stories like that. It's tough to talk to somebody who said that the entire company, the entire studio is pushing down social justice sort of ideologies and stuff, and even the unbelievers that work there wanted to strike, like, just because. Yeah, I mean, unbelievers know that social justice creates terrible stories.
That's for sure. Yeah.
And so it's really bad. And then, my wife actually showed me a book. It's like a book, and it's called Social Justice Baby or something like that. I forget what it is. But it was like this I think they posted it in the Reform Pub, like they posted like all the pages of it, and like it doesn't even rhyme, it doesn't tell a story. It's just like, the baby, like it's like a drawing of a cartoon baby with his like fists in the air, and it says, "You take that Black Panther fist and you hold it up for freedom." And
Oh man,
like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever
so
seen.
bad.
And, but they don't. In order for the social justice movement to tell a story, they have to completely remove themselves from the Christian worldview, because they're actually in opposition to it, right? So it's not like other artists who are like, I just want to tell a good story, and they might not realize that they're embracing the Christian worldview when they tell a story. With social justice, it's in complete opposition to the Christian worldview. So you have to remove any elements of good storytelling that comes from the Christian worldview in order to tell a social justice story. And it's just really bad. Jason, who's one of our co-founders, was telling me that there was this story of a woman that he watched. It was a movie, and the woman had to decide whether she wanted to be successful in her career or be a loving mother. And she said, I'm going to do, like, the big end of the movie is like, I'm going to do both. And it's like, well, that's not a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's no sacrifice. There's no conclusion. Nothing was lost. She didn't, there was nothing put at risk. So it's like, well, you just said you were going to do both, and but in the real world, that doesn't even work, because you can't do both.
Right.
So people who are watching it are like, oh, that's okay. Well, that ending wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be, but they can't really articulate why, and the reason is because, the true heroic move of that movie would have for her to abandon her career and raise a child, right? And then, but you didn't get that story, because that would have embraced, the idea that women should be at home with their children. And then, so then you got, well, she's not going to abandon her child, and right, because that would be a terrible movie for her to just like toss her child in an orphanage and pursue her career. Yeah. So she just says, I'm going to do both, and it's like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, well, it's the
storytelling perspective. It's dumb. Like,
it's the feminist ideal, right? It's I can do everything, and there's no reason for it. It's just I can, and that's the story,
right? Right, and so that's the point. It's like, and so we're seeing a lot of that sort of stuff now. And then when we see a good story, like let's say like The Mandalorian,
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, which is about a father protecting his son.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at like Jon Favreau, like his mom died when he was young, and him and his dad would sit around and watch movies a lot. That's how they sort of connected, and I guess you could say mourned the loss of their mother, especially because she died around Christmas time, so they would watch a lot of Christmas movies. And that's what attracted Jon Favreau to the movie Elf, right? Because Elf is a father searching for a son.
Yep.
It's a Christmas movie, and then you have, The Lion King is about a father and son, and then so like all the movies that Jon Favreau does is
Iron
about
Man.
this father-son connection. Yeah, Iron Man,
and even the Spider-Man one that he kind of made Iron Man the father figure to Spider-Man and that too. Yeah, I've read a lot about.
Yeah,
that
even his character,
his
character is a father figure in Spider-Man, right? So all of the movies he does has this huge father-son connection. Chef is another one, right? So, but the problem, but people look at that and go, man, Jon Favreau is such a genius director. He's not the best director. I mean, he's good. He's really good. But like the stories he's telling are not unique. Like they're just like, they just don't exist in our culture because everybody like shames father-son sort of, right? Like the real fatherhood stuff. And I think there's probably going to be some social justice twist. It's going to happen. But like, just knowing that, okay, so there can be great stories that aren't necessarily the sort of pure flick style altar call evangelistic sort of stuff, but they can actually just be legitimate good stories that are completely from a Christian worldview that you can enjoy with your family and be inspired and encouraged and stuff. You know, like The Mandalorian. When I watch The Mandalorian, it makes you want to be a protector of your child.
Yeah.
Right. Like that sort of stuff. You watch that, and you're like, I want to carry a gun with me for at least. And I want to be well trained to be able to protect my child, you know, because like that's, you know, and your son watches that and goes, man, like I want a father that protects me like him.
Well, and there's a sense of honor and mission, you know, in that show. That was, I mean, we watched that entire first season. I haven't seen the second season. We watched the entire first season. We got Disney Plus that whole month-long free or whatever back in like August, I think it was. And my wife was like, do you want to watch The Mandalorian? And I said, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I hadn't heard anything about it yet. I wasn't sure because I've pretty much just hate Star Wars at this point. And we started watching it, and I remember like even after the first episode, we're like, okay, well, there's no gay characters. There's no transgender nonsense going on right now. I'm not really seeing any social justice happening. Like, this might actually be good. And then, you go all the way through, and it's not perfect or anything. And I know there's some things in it, you know, here that aren't great, but in comparison to the last 3 Star Wars movies, it's night and day in terms of storytelling, in terms of what the general overall message is. And like you said, it's not groundbreaking. But it's something we haven't seen for so long that people are eating it up.
Yeah, I mean, like even the first Star Wars was about a father and son, right? So everyone's like, it's funny because you read Twitter, and like after each episode you read Twitter, and people are like, man, like Jon Favreau, they really know like the core of like what Star Wars is. And it's like, well, yeah, it's just masculine men fighting to save the weaker vessels, right? Whether it's children or women.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's exactly what Star Wars was. It was like save the princess. The men come in and save the princess. Right? So, and there were very masculine male figures in Star Wars, and the same thing you see in The Mandalorian. Like that's what made Star Wars such a huge hit, because like it was something that men could relate to as men, you know. And so, and then you have Pure Flix, who comes in and they market towards, you know, 50-year-old housewives who so they just completely have ignored men altogether. And then even when they try to make something that appeals to men, it's just a copycat rip off of something else.
Yeah.
Right. Like they just came out with like, well, I think it was like Beckham, which is like the Christian John Wick movie they just came out with.
Oh, are you
like,
kidding me? Oh man.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
How do you even get a Christian John Wick? What does that look like?
Well, the funny thing is I haven't seen it, but somebody told me that the reviews for it were talking about how like Pure Flix is like abandoning the faith and stuff, because I guess it was violent. It was more violent than like the other Pure Flix movie, the other. So it's like they've cornered themselves in a market where they can't even tell manly stories anymore.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah.
So they're in danger, and then of course they just got bought by Sony, and this is like the same Sony that's pushing like LGBT and trans stuff in the video games through like Last of Us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you know it's not going to be long before there's like a gay female pastor in a Pure Flix story that we're supposed to relate to.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't.
So here's a question for you.
Going to be able to... Go ahead.
So how is Lore going to differentiate itself between Pure Flix and this, and maintain like some kind of standard? Is there a statement of faith, or what? How is that going to be carried out?
Well, no, there's not going to be a statement of faith. The standard is based on what people want to see, and so it's how you build your audience initially at your core customer base, right? So and then of course you talk about like, well, what if there's like something that's too violent, or like there's a cuss word or something and I don't want my kid to see? Well, the best filter is the father, right? The father is the one who should make programming decisions for their children based on their age and all this other stuff. So we don't have a theological sort of orthodoxy. I think that's sort of the problem, is everybody's made into these narrow niches of like what entertainment should be or whatever. Whereas we just take the Chick-fil-A model and it's just like, well, we'll just make good chicken sandwiches, and then we'll serve. If the pagans like it too, the pagans will like it. So I think like any good Christian business caters to everybody just because of the quality of what they make. And then the way you build your business is the consumers start to expect that specific quality. Those are the people that are loyal to you as customers. And once you start to stray from that, you lose that sense of loyalty. And I think we saw that with Chick-fil-A. When it came out that Chick-fil-A had hired one of Obama's people to oversee charitable giving, and then they were giving to like a homosexual organization and stuff like that. People were just like, I don't care. I don't really care about Chick-fil-A as much anymore. Right? But Chick-fil-A is also locked in their business in such a way and define their business in such a way that they can't open up on Sundays. People will never take that would be such a huge rebellion to Chick-fil-A if they open up on Sundays. So it's really just about how you define your business and build your core customer base that protects you in a completely true free market system in terms of like, the stories we can tell versus the stories we can't tell. And so, you ask, well, what if you have a guy comes in and he's got this like crap transgender film? I mean, this is assuming that we're completely open with anybody, but let's say you have a guy comes in with this crap transgender film. Well, if you built your core audience base to such a degree, they're just going to reject it and they're not going to fund it. So it's part of it's just trusting the free market.
Do you guys have veto power in terms of being?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was like,
it's not going to be like there's porn on our platform. And you're like, no. There's going to be standards.
Wait, so you're saying that Polly the Transparent from our show, he can't have his own biography on there? He's going to be very disappointed.
No one will care about it.
He's going to be really disappointed, and he's going to be very angry about it. In fact, I don't know, maybe we should do a segment like that with Polly just ranting about lore. It could be an advertisement for you. There you go.
Yeah. No, I mean, like there might be some movies about trans people, but like it'll be about like detransitioning, right? Like, or there'll be like a mockery or a character joke. So it's going to be like, it's going to be stuff that you're not going to get anywhere.
So when should we expect anything? Like what's we've seen a few announcements and stuff. When is the? It's Christmas, man. Give us something. Give us something you haven't told anybody else.
We don't have it. We don't have a date yet as far as like content launches, but we're currently in the investment stage, and we've just received a pretty substantial investment, not donation, let's say donation. I've been working at nonprofit for too long, but we've received our first investment, and we're still doing investment rounds right now, and then we're going to start funding the first amount of content to be produced probably very early next year, so January and February. So you'll start to see stuff really soon, actually, a lot sooner than you would expect.
So if people want to get in contact with you about lore, and if they want to invest, can they still invest?
Yeah, absolutely. So go to lore.tv, LOR.tv. We're currently looking for accredited investors, and I think the government defines accredited investors as those who have, I think, $1 million in assets outside of their home in real estate. So like we're looking for accredited investors initially, and then we're going to open up once the website launches, there'll be other ways to invest in lore. So but if you go to lore.tv and sign up as an investor, then we'll be able to send you information and get in touch.
Hey, you hear that, Joseph? We can be an accredited investor because we have $1 million. Yeah, right.
So they're out there, man. There's Christians that are out there. It sounds, crazy, but they're out there. And I think a lot of these Christian investors, these wealthy Christian businessmen, they're looking for companies to invest in that they know are going to fight. And and so we've had really good discussions with people, and just kind of been encouraged by not only the amount of talent that's out there, but the amount of wealth. And it's just really just people, just, you just need men with vision that are going to come around and say, there's these problems. We look around, we say, oh man, like mainstream media, like how are we ever going to conquer mainstream media? Well, somebody's just got to pick up a rock and throw it at the head,
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's what we're doing. We're just saying, look, man, let's just do it. Let's just knock the head off. And so that's the plan.
Amen, man. Well, hey, you got any final words before we sign off here?
No, man, have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too, man. You and the missus, and how you guys doing out there, by the way? Move go okay?
Yeah, we're doing good, man. We're getting settled in the home, and just sort of getting used to all the cold weather. It's kind of drastic change from
That's
Phoenix
for sure.
Phoenix to Moscow, Idaho. So it's snowing every day this week, that sort of thing. So yeah, man. But other than that, we're doing great. It's great. It's a great little town. I was kicked out of a restaurant. Getting used to small town politics because I posted on Facebook I had COVID last week or 2 weeks ago, and we went to a restaurant after quarantining. I was already quarantining, and somebody saw or knew me. There's a lot of hostility towards the church we go to out here. And so they knew me and spotted me, and I was like, "Are you Marcus Pittman? I read your content online." And I was like, "Yeah, hi, nice to meet you." And then they called the police because I had said I had COVID and I was in a restaurant. And
nice.
then
Nice.
so I just laughed. I was like, I'm just gonna leave. And so because they were, you don't want to get the restaurant in trouble,
right?
Because it's not their fault, and so it's just like, okay, I got it. So, but yeah, so that's the world we live in. That's the commie utopia all the liberals want, the sort of oppression. It's weird. They want to defund the police, but they also need the police to oppress people at the same time. So it's like, what do you do?
Well, that's why, and that's why I think not that every year it isn't important to celebrate Christmas, man, but I think that's why this year especially, I think it's very important for Christians to keep being Christians, keep going to church, and keep celebrating Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely, man. 100%.
All right, Marcus. Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it, and we are excited to see Ride Sally Ride come to theater. No, I'm kidding. Actually, that should happen. Ride Sally Ride should come to theaters. I'm going to push it, man. I'm going to do it. We're going to do it.
Somebody's going to make it.
Somebody will make it.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, man.
Merry Christmas to you.
All right, bye.
That was Marcus Pittman from LoreTV, and you are listening to The Patriarchy on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. We'll be right back.
All right. For our interview now, let's talk about our Christmas traditions.
All right. Do you have any?
It's the longest pause ever. It's like this is dead air. Yes, we do have some Christmas traditions.
That was part of my Christmas traditions.
What?
Awkward pauses. Awkward pauses.
You're very good at it. Sheesh.
So here's a question before you get into it.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
Oh, no. Is this a serious question?
It is.
Sure.
It is.
Sure.
It's somewhat
Sure.
serious.
Oh, somewhat. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. What do you do about Santa Claus?
Oh, no. That's easy. Kids don't think Santa Claus is real. We talk about the actual.
Wait, what?
Saint Nick. Yes, I'm one of those.
I am too.
I figured. We've never told our kids that Santa Claus is real. We're also not like raising up militant anti-Santa Claus Nazis to run around and, try to disrupt everybody's home life or something like that. Basically, we've just said, St. Nick was a real person. He liked to punch heretics. No, maybe we'll tell that story one day. But just, that there was a real person named Saint Nick, and that there were these traditions that came from somewhere. And so, just over time that people had made this up, that they, all these fantastical things about him, flying through the air and, with his reindeer, etc. But that it was, you go back and there was actually a real guy. And so we try to talk about that. We try to talk about some things in the past, and what people used to do and where some of these came from. And but yeah, we're like, it's fine to have fun with Saint Nick, Santa Claus. It's fine to see people, dressed up as Santa Claus and wave to them and have fun and stuff like that. But we just don't lie to our kids. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it to anybody, but I that's just the way that I look at it. Is I don't want to make up this big fantastical fairy tale, which is what it is. It's fun, but I don't want to make this up and have them believe it, that there is this guy that can basically be everywhere at once and knows what you're doing at all times. And then you're like, at some point in their life, oh, hey, just kidding. But there is this guy named Jesus who can be everywhere at once and also knows what you're doing, and he's real. And I'm not going to tell you one day that he's not real. I mean, that I feel like it takes the trust that you're building with your kids, and it makes them question it. And I don't want to do that to my kids. I don't want to take away the fun of the holidays, and we don't. Like I said, they can have fun and wave at Santa Claus, when they see him, because there's a fire engine that comes around my parents' neighborhood every year, and they have one of the firemen dresses up as Santa Claus, and they have the fire engine all decked out, and they go through the neighborhoods and they, ring the thing, ring the siren and everything, and they wave, and that's fun. That's cool. That's fun. But there's no reason I have to tell my kids that he's real. It's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that same kind of way. You ever read books to your kids or watch movies? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
You're telling your kids, hey, these hobbits are not real, but they're fun to watch.
Wait, what? The hobbits aren't real? We trying to say that Middle Earth wasn't? It really didn't happen. You're ruining my childhood, Joseph. I get you. Yeah, that's just exactly.
We're saying,
that's
it's like
exactly
there's all kinds of stuff, and I found that actually it's enabled us to enjoy Christmas, enjoy Santa Claus even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because there's not this weird tension of like trying to keep some secret thing. No, we just enjoy it and that kind of thing. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. So what's a Christmas tradition you got? So tell us what you do.
Well, and I mean, now that we're in the house that we're in a couple of years now, we are trying to make more traditions in terms of our home. But in terms of just my family's traditions, we always would we'd always get up in not super early in the morning, but decently early, and then we would have some kind of special Christmas breakfast. Whether it was like cinnamon buns or just something really good and usually sugary for Christmas morning. And my mom would always make something like that or whatever. And my wife has started doing that with us too, and we do that before we get the gifts out or anything like that. And then we read something, one of the accounts, of from Scripture, and and then we get some gifts out in the morning. And usually we start with our stockings. And we do have stockings. We have a fireplace. I put up these screws when we moved into the house to hang them all. And as we're having more kids, I'm adding more screws and trying to space it all out. And then we get the little things out of the stockings and stuff. And then we have some of our gifts. And then, we usually have a time where we kind of just hang out and maybe the kids play with something they got. And then we usually then will end up going like over to my mom and dad's, and we'll have like a pretty traditional, like Christmas lunch. Calling it lunch doesn't even do it justice. It's huge, which as it should be. And I think you should have a big Christmas celebration, and then we go over, and a lot of times my dad will also read something. He will pray over us, and, we'll eat together, and, we'll do some gifts and stuff later. But then usually the rest of the day is kind of just, kind of hanging out and enjoying being around family and talking about pretty much whatever. But usually then at night, we always have, like, dinner time. We have not leftovers. I don't know if you can call the same day food leftovers, but usually we'll make. I don't know about you, but I like making sandwiches out of like the ham and anything else we have, and kind of pile it on the sandwich and you eat those for dinner and stuff. And I'm trying to think of others. My dad and I used to. We don't go to the same church anymore. But when we were all going to the same church, Christmas Eve, we usually went to a Christmas Eve service at our church together. My mom would always wrap gifts, and it was usually like my dad and I's tradition to do that. So, that might be something I actually might start doing maybe with my sons. I think that might be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm trying to think. There's probably other things I'm just missing, but that's the general gist of the day and a lot of things that we do. But what do you guys do? Like, when do you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, it's like, as we've probably talked before, I've wrestled for a few years with the issue of what do we do about these Christian holidays and stuff. And here recently, having worked through it, I think I've just come to embrace it and love it, actually. And we just moved into a new home back in March. So one of our Christmas tradition goals is to be that house. You know what I mean? To be that house in the neighborhood where everybody's like, oh man, they went all out lighting up their house.
Nice.
So we've bought some lights where our intention is, slowly build it up over the years.
Sure.
Kind of make a big deal of putting on the Christmas lights, lighting them up for the first time, Clark Griswold style.
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
Joy to the world. Yeah. That kind of, and then, we've been celebrating Advent since the first Sunday of that. We've been doing an Advent devotional book. I got one from Moscow, Idaho, an author out there, it's really good. And so we've been doing that. We've been drinking hot chocolate like it's going out of style.
That's good. I should do that now.
We've decorated the house. I grew up and we would go to my grandmother's house quite often. And both her house and my house growing up during the Christmas time was always so warm.
Yeah.
Not like warm temperature.
I know what you mean.
Just like warm and like cozy.
Yep.
Yep. It because of all the Christmas decorations and everything, it just felt that's what we want it to be. An inviting place, warm, the smells and everything, to be just something that as kids grow older, they remember. And we want it all to be kind of a teaching time towards teaching about Christ and why we celebrate. So we're always talking about why we celebrating. One of the things that we've been doing with our church for a few years is going Christmas caroling. This year we have really ramped it up. So before we've gone like one time a year.
Okay.
This year we're going 4 different times. We've already gone twice to 2 different places.
Nice.
We went outside like a rehabilitation shelter, like a drug rehabilitation shelter, and Christmas caroled there, and they loved it. And then we went to a place where there's a lot of Christmas lights. People were walking around with masks on. We're standing there singing and that kind of thing. So we got 2 more times. We're going to be going through the neighborhoods and just really Christmas caroling it. And then finally, Christmas morning, we are up in the morning. One of the things we do is we always put a trail of candy from their bedroom door to the tree. So we take them all into one bedroom, and while they're in there getting dressed and stuff, I make the candy trail, and they get little baskets. And then we go back in. Before we let them get out of the bedroom, we sing a Christmas carol. We usually sing "Happy Birthday to Jesus,"
nice,
and
yeah.
we tell the Christmas story, read some Bible. Oftentimes we'll call my brother who was born on Christmas and wish him happy birthday. And then we open up the door, and kids go running, trying to get all the candy, and then to the Christmas tree and undo our wrappings, and then have Christmas music playing, and then have half the day spent trying to put together Christmas toys and playing with them, and then nice food and fellowship. A lot of times if we can, we'll go to my parents' house. So, sometime around Christmas, not always on Christmas because it's in West Virginia. But
yeah,
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, what were you about to say?
Well, it made me think of one other thing when I was growing up. I just haven't thought of it for a while because she's been gone for so long. But one of my grandmothers, I mean, I guess I could talk about both, but one of my grandmothers, my dad's mother, who I always referred to her as Nana when I was growing up, and my other grandma was Grandma. And when I was very little, if you mistakenly got that wrong, I would correct you. So I've been told. So everybody was like, "Is that your grandma?" And I was like, "It's my Nana. She's my Nana." And but Nana lived with us growing up, and I remember. So we had basically what we'd done growing up. This is always the joke: is that Nana lived in the garage, because Nana actually did live in the garage. But what we did is we basically just walled off everything inside of it and made an entire apartment inside the garage and in the back, which was like supposed to be like a washroom area and stuff, and that ended up being her kitchen. And so it's like a pretty nice size. And but the joke always was, that my Nana lives in the garage. But she would make cookies like crazy beginning in like December. And I mean, anytime you go over Nana's, all you would smell is just cookies. I mean, just all sorts of cookies. And I remember that was like her big thing is she loved to bake cookies for Christmas, especially. And she'd make all sorts of cookies. They were just probably every kind of cookie you could imagine. My Nana would make those cookies. And she'd get these big Christmas tins from the store. And she'd put the papers in them and put all the cookies in. And she'd have these things stacked everywhere, and she'd be giving them to everybody. And she always gave me my own little cookie tin with all my favorites in it. And she had this little thing on the wall, and it was like a little Christmas countdown thing. And it had a little Christmas tree, and it had like little, it looked like windows, but the in the window was like a little pocket. And every day I'd come over and I'd move it until you got to Christmas morning. And my Nana was a very early riser, like very, very early. And so as a child, as I'm sure as fathers know, we can attest, our kids bounce out of bed, or at least mine do, very early, especially on Christmas Day. And I would, but my dad would always like, you got to go back to sleep until 8 o'clock, or don't wake me up until 8 o'clock. And like 8 o'clock was so far away for me, when I was like up at 6 a.m. and just bouncing out of bed. And like, I want to go downstairs. So my Nana would always tell me that I could just come over and hang out with her. And man, I miss that. That was one of my favorite parts, I think, of Christmas Day, was going downstairs bright and early, going over to my Nana's, and she'd be up, and she'd still be baking cookies. And she'd always give me a cookie or two in the morning, and I'd sit down, and, when she was done, we'd sit. She always had this one rocking chair that she loved, and I'd sit there with her, and we'd just talk and talk and talk and talk. And I miss her. She's been gone for quite a few years now, but I remember that a lot. That was cool. That was fun.
We've spent a lot of time talking about these traditions, and as we're doing it, immediately, just as you were talking, all kinds of memories come back. And I think that's the importance of fathers developing and helping to maintain and develop traditions in the home, and to carry on traditions from previous generations, to kind of carry on what came from before. It's so important. It helps. It's a teaching tool that if you're wise, it teaches you. You can use it to teach about Christ, the gospel, about family, loving each other, caring for each other, about joy from what Christ has done, about celebration, which is within the Christian faith. A Christian faith is a faith that has both times of fasting and feasting, and Christmas traditions teach us all about these things. And I think it's so important. If I would encourage our fathers and husbands listening to this, carry on traditions from your childhood, even ones that you may have thought were cheesy. Because I could always remember there was always some cheesy tradition thing that like I got forced to do. Like for us at Thanksgiving, it was to sing this song. And the song was kind of cheesy. But now looking back upon it, I'm thankful. And so we continue it. And my children grown too. And one day they will look back upon it. And I think this is so important in so many ways. It's one of the reasons I think our culture has fallen apart, is we don't have a shared tradition. We don't have a shared heritage culture, and we rebel and hate our fathers and what came from before us so much. And so, yeah, carry this on, man. This should be the Christmas gift that you, as not Clark Griswold, what's the other guy? Uncle Eddie says, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Wasn't that what was that, the cheese subscription or whatever it was, or something? I can't remember what that was. Yeah, it was some kind of subscription.
It's the gift that gives all year long.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that was another one. Is my mom always wanted to watch that movie, Christmas Vacation, and I remember that. Yeah, like you said, there's always memories that come back, and one of the cool ones is, and I kind of end on this a little bit, is so I live in my grandfather's house on my mom's side now, and my grandfather passed away earlier this year. And we still, one of the traditions I had is my cousin and I would, once we were in like our teenage years, we'd go over and we'd set up the Christmas tree for my grandmother all the time. And that Christmas, or our Christmas tree now, sits in the same spot that it sat for my entire childhood at this house. And that was kind of a thing that I really, and it probably sounds dumb and cheesy to some people, but from the moment we moved in, I knew that was where the Christmas tree was going to go. Like, that Christmas tree was going to go in that corner, in that room, because that's where my grandma put it, and that's where my grandpa, put it. And we still, every year, we put it there, and we light the fireplace that's out there, and that's where we open gifts, because that's where I opened gifts with my grandfather and my aunt and uncle and my cousins. And yeah, I mean, that's small, but it helps me remember my grandparents. And like you said, even little things like that. And I talked to the kids, and I told my kids, you know what? This is the same room that I had Christmas, and it's also the same room that Grandma and Grandpa used to teach. They used to teach a little kids Bible study class, and they'd have it out there. And they had a big, you remember the big felt boards that used to be so popular. And they had a big felt board, and they would put it out there, and they teach the little kids about Jesus, and that's I'll tell my kids about that, and yeah, there's always a way to tie it in. So if you take nothing else away from this, celebrate Christmas, carry on traditions, praise God,
Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas. Right. So that's our episode for this week. I'm not going to give you the usual spiel of sign up, become a member, or anything like that. Just enjoy your Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. And until next time, if you're listening and you have not yet bowed your knee to Christ, repent and believe. And if you have, this is our call to you. Build, fight, protect, lead. This is the Patriarchy.
Oh, sexism, my forms are so wide-ranging. Oh, sexism, from catcalls to slut-shaming. A lot of it's insidious, but nonetheless still takes the piss. Oh, sexism, please spare me your mansplaining.
This is Chadwick. Chad shouldn't be that hard to say, Chadwick. Unless you've done it 10 times. Chadwick. All right, do it again.